I don't know how many people were here last time. If you were here last time, please raise your hand just so that I can get a feel of who I can pick on. It's too late, you raise your hand. If you remember, last time we talked about styles of couples. For those who were not here, we talked about how we learn a lot about how to interact in our marriages and in our relationships and in our homes from our family of origin. That's a lot of what we take, and sometimes what we take from our family of origin is what we imitate, and sometimes it is what we avoid or run from, and it varies. There are certain things I didn't like about how I was growing up, and I think I will never do this. I turn around and I say, oh my God, I'm my dad. Like I'm behaving exactly like what I was running from. That's not unusual, but it's important to recognize and understand. So our family of origin plays a significant role in how we behave and interact in our marriages and in our homes. The culture we are in also plays a significant role in how we interact in our marriages and in our homes. What we see on social media, what we hear, even the jokes that sometimes run around in society, and we laugh about it, despite us laughing about it, we actually turn around and repeat it in our relationships and in our marriages. And we saw last time how there are three specific or main styles of marital interactions. Anybody remember? There were three. 2 V's and one that's not a V. So I'm trying to make it easy. Anybody remember? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So validating, volatile, and avoidant. I remind you that none of them is negative. They're just descriptions. We're not ever one type all the time. It depends on our stage in life and what we're going through. Somebody may become volatile when they're most of the time validating. So we may change over time. And none of these is negative. It is how we apply them. I tried last time to take from scripture describing to us how a validating attitude in marriage can be positive and can be negative. A volatile can be positive, a volatile personality can be positive and can be negative. Sometimes volatile is described as violent. It's not. Volatile is not violent. There's a big difference. Okay? So I'm not going to go back to that. I just wanted to bring us to where we stopped last time. One thing that I took from reading about this and preparing it is something I called the 10 commandments of a rewarding marriage. Of course, when we hear the word 10 commandments, our minds always run quickly to Moses and the 2 tablets and the 10 commandments, and they are like fiery orders or instructions. This is also going to be the same. I'm not going to explain a lot. I'm just going to put them out. Maybe in another time we can spend more time on one of them or each of them or some of them based on how these reflect when you hear them as we spend the evening tonight and talk about them. So I apologize for not giving you a lot of explanation or background. I'm just going to, just give them out. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Oh. So the first commandment, be affectionate. Implicit and explicit. And this may apply significantly to the men in the room, especially Middle Eastern men, who in a way, for a long time, saw an image at home of a stern, long-faced dad, or a family where affection was a woman's job, not a man's job. And I'm here to tell you, the first commandment is, and this applies to both husband and wife, be affectionate, implicit and explicit. So it's not enough to say, well, she must know I love her. No, she doesn't. She's not a mind reader. Be explicit about affection. I don't know what am I doing wrong. Ah, okay. Show that you care. And that's a little different than affection. Show that you care about the other person. Think about things that bring joy to their hearts. Their favorite flower, lotion, ice cream. I'm an addict. My name is Emad and I'm an addict. How do you like that? For a long time I was addicted to ice cream. And Mona made it a point, she knows exactly, I like plain vanilla ice cream. She made it a point that the freezer never, ever was devoid of ice cream. And every time I open the freezer and see the ice cream, the first thought that comes to my mind is, she thought of me. She thought of me. She does not like ice cream, by the way. Does not like it. But she cared that when she goes, and she's the one that does the grocery shopping, she cared to pick ice cream for me, and that is always there. Be appreciative. Back to the ice cream. A lot for me to sit around and thank you for ice cream. I recognize that you don't need ice cream, but you, I thought of it. You make it. Be appreciative. Say it and show it. There are no miracles that happen at home. They're acts. So when the food at home, it doesn't happen by itself. There is an angel that comes to bring food. When it's empty, it doesn't happen surprisingly. Be initiative. I wake up every morning at 4:35. I tell them, and I'm never tired of it. We lived for 25 years in Cleveland, Ohio. Any of you who have lived in the north know how cold it gets in the winter. Every winter. I woke up to a warm cup of tea, and Mona would be out turning the car on to prepare. So when I get out, the car is ready for me to be appreciative. I'm saying it. And any chance I'm going to have to say it, I'm going to say it. Be appreciative. Even if she's not here. He was going to one day tell her, I hope. Be appreciative. I'm praying to the computer. Be empathetic. That's emotional resonance. Allow the other person to realize that you know what they are going through. Even if sometimes you may not agree with how they feel or what they're thinking. Empathy is not acceptance, it's understanding. Be empathetic. Let the other person know that you understand why they're saying what they're saying, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, but be empathetic. Marriage is not a 50-50. Well, I wake up every day, I work hard, bringing to the table. It's not a 50-50. Marriage in Christ is that each of us is giving 100% of myself. A return on investment. I'm not expecting somebody to meet me halfway. I'm going to go all the way. Marriage is not a 50-50. It's 100% times 2. Remember the marriage. In the light of Christ. So we do negative things. Understand that, we all will do it. As long as I recognize that you need for a relationship to continue to grow, one. Every time there is something negative that happens, you need 5 positive things. So if you start for it, you need to build the bank account 5 times. 5 good things that you say. 5 acts that you do. A match ratio of 5 to 1 for any negative interaction. Don't take life too seriously. Even when things are hard, even difficult, even when finances are stressful, joke around. Allow yourself to be playful and silly in private, and have words together to laugh about life. To the kids, and you get feelings by them. Use them for the two of you to joke around. Or expect one to be your effort, your favor. I like this one. Treat your spouse with respect and boundaries, at least as well as you do treat your colleagues and partners at work. Precious to us to take the brunt of behaviors that we would never dare do at work. We sometimes say things at home. Oh, okay. Look at that. I appreciate you. We sometimes say things at home that we wouldn't dare say at work to our partners or our co-workers. We sometimes look in a way that we wouldn't allow ourselves to look at home. We would never do it at work. At least treat your spouse as well and with as much respect as you do to your colleagues and your co-workers. This is the last one, and I love it. I'm hitting the button. Do not inflict your bad mood on your spouse. Just like if you have eaten a lot of basal or garlic, and you would not inflict your bad breath on somebody. Like, you'd be careful. So if you are in a bad mood, I will allow you that. But don't inflict it on your spouse. The fact that you had a bad day at work doesn't allow you or permit you to inflict that bad mood that you have on your spouse. I know I didn't delve a lot into them, and these are simple 10 commandments for our interactions and our relationships in our marriages and in our homes. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, friends. I'm Monica. I have been a clinical therapist for a little less than a decade now, and so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about experiences in therapy and couples therapy. And of course, we're going to go over and just dive into a little bit about what Dr. Emad said, and I'm going to go a little bit into different things. But before I get started, I do want to get us a little bit loose. I feel like we're tense, it's timid, you know, so I wanted to ask you guys a question, and of course, feel free. Whoever wants to talk can, and I'll tell you first my answer to the question. And it's, what was your expectation when you got married? Your first expectation. I know that for me, at least, my husband, Mina over there, would open the door for me every time I got into my car. It was the best thing ever. I was like, oh, so cute. I hope this lasts forever. Of course. Probably, I would say about a year into the marriage, that stopped. I'd come to my door. Oh, he's already seated. Okay. That's not going to happen. So that would happen. And I'm like, okay, expectations, manage expectations. What about anybody else? What was an expectation in the marriage or for marriage? People who haven't been married yet, coming into the marriage. What are you guys looking forward to? I'm looking over here. I'll stop doing that. What? No. Now you have to answer. I'm sorry. Anyone?
Expecting that all of my feelings were going to be validated every single time I shared them.
Can I build on that one?
That's great.
I was expecting that there weren't going to be that many feeling stalks.
Come on, talk to me about your feelings.
Any other expectations?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Any expectations for marriage here?
Ooh, nice. The couple who's not married. I love it.
I'm hoping I can expect that I don't have to fill gas in my car anymore. That's the only thing.
Should we tell the truth? I'm just kidding. I'll let you have it. That's a good one.
I don't fill gas in my car, and I hope it continues.
That's awesome. Anyone else? This side's awfully quiet. I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just saying. Okay. What about it? Who is doing it?
Everybody.
Oh, okay. That's nice, actually.
50-50. But it's more like 70-30. No. I'm kidding. No, we all share our load. We all have tasks. I think I'm trash, dishes, sweeping, and Sylvia's laundry and taking care of the kids and their homework. And we try to divide and conquer. Right? Yeah, okay.
So Mark used to cook all the time, and I hate cooking. So I thought that I would have somebody to cook me dinner every night forever, but the kids came.
That's great. Thank you guys for sharing. Anybody else want to say anything before I get started? Thank you guys. Thank you. I got you guys to be a little bit more relaxed and going into a more serious talk. Okay, looking at this picture. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Scary. It's scary. But the idea here is not to be afraid, okay? It looks scary on the outside, but the idea here is we're going to be talking about 4 warning signs that lead into a cascade of events, okay? Depending on how you deal with those events, is indicative of whether this marriage is going to be successful. Not necessarily divorce, but just being happy in the marriage, right? Because it can go either way. It doesn't necessarily mean divorce, like we kind of just talked about, or we talked about last week, right? So let's get into that. But before we do, I want to give you guys a few reminders, okay? Happy reminders, okay? all couples fit into the 3 types of marriage styles, right? The 3 types of marriage styles that Dr. Emad had talked about and he brought up today. Do you remember what they were? The 2 V's and my friend over there. Yes, volatile. Yes, right. And he specifically said that all those are healthy, and that was a big thing of what I wanted to reiterate today from last time. Those are all healthy, even though they're volatile. Volatility is not bad. It just means that, yeah, some people have high highs and low lows. I will admit to you, I am a volatile person. I am more of the emotional type. That's not a bad thing. It has its perks too, right? So there's always a beauty, and also, of course, there's some things that we have to work on in whatever marriage style that we have, right? So no style is better than the other. So regardless of whatever negative communication style you see in your marriage, and you notice it today, it doesn't mean, oh no, we're in big trouble. We're definitely heading to divorce. No. They're just warning signs, and we're here today to teach you that when we're able to recognize these warning signs, it's going to allow us to look for a solution. That's all it is. We're trying to find a solution. Let's stop it where it's happening. Let's figure out what's wrong. Find the solution, right? Okay, so here they are, just real quick. So the validating, calm communicators, they negotiate and compromise, sacrifice personal goals to preserve a bond. The volatile And then the last one is the avoidant couple. The conflict minimizers, they're autonomous and hold separate responsibilities. So one thing about avoidant couples, like we said, they're healthy. Just to know, avoidant couples don't mean that they avoid each other, because that's going to be one of the horsemen that we talk about. What they do is they like to minimize conflict. So what one might say to the other is, you know what, no problem. We can do whatever it is that you want to do today, even if they're bothered. They don't like the confrontation. It doesn't necessarily mean that one is suffering from it. Did you have a question?
Have that communication style, or is that individuals in the couple? Because, like, I recognize one person might have a volatile while the other might be avoidant, or one validating
Yes,
of the other's
thank
volatile.
you. No, thank you for that. Actually, it's both. It's the couples. I'm talking about couples only because this is just a, I'm just going over what was said last time. So yes, what we ended up doing last time was Dr. Emad discussed how of the couples, the validating, the volatile, and the avoidant, but he first asked us to identify individually, are we validating person, a volatile person, or an avoidant person? So yes, this also applies to individuals. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, I understand. So that would have been nice for me to do. So before we move forward, then I will just say the same thing applies. A validating person is going to have these characteristics, same with the volatile, same with the avoidant. So just because I'm a volatile person doesn't necessarily, like I admitted, doesn't necessarily mean we have a volatile marriage or we're the volatile couple, because my husband is not volatile. Does that make sense? Actually, in fact, I would say, okay, never mind. That would be my analysis. Never mind, okay? Okay. Okay. Now, if the 4 horsemen, okay, which we will talk about, we haven't gotten it to yet, but if those 4 things occur and we're not able to stabilize our marriages, we fall into 2 types of marriages. So you saw the first 3 couples, right? Those are the 3 types of marriages as well. This, however, happens when we cannot, like I said, stabilize the 4 horsemen. So, for example, you have the hostile and the engaged marriage. So these people will argue often and intensely. There's insults, name calling, put down, sarcasm. For example, okay? So I have here Fred and Ingrid, okay? So I just made up these names, right? They're just examples. So say the husband says, for example, "Did you pick up my dry cleaning?" She says mockingly, "Did you pick up my dry cleaning? What am I, your maid?" He says, "Well, hardly. If you were my maid, at least you'd know how to clean." You see the sarcasm? The direct intent to hurt the other person, right? The second type of marriage, hostile and a detached marriage. Husband and wife may abuse each other. This could be verbally, physically, whatever form. Don't really look at each other very much. Neither really listens to what the other is saying. Brief episodes of attack and defensiveness. Another example. I have Mary and Paul this time. Mary, don't you think we get along a little better? Her husband says, "Yeah, but I get tired of hearing how hot it is." Completely diverted to a completely different topic, right? She says, "Well, those are the things people are talking about. I'm sorry." He says, "Not just the weather. I don't want to listen unless it's pleasant. If there's something I don't enjoy, I don't want to talk about it." She's like, "Well, if you're not particularly enjoying yourself, you just don't want to talk?" He says, "Exactly. If it's not pleasant, I don't want to talk about it." "Yeah? Well, you're the only family I've got. If I have to keep all my problems to myself, I might as well live by myself." They're not hearing each other. One is completely talking about something else than that the other person's talking about. Right? We're completely avoiding each other. So that's the detachment. So the 4 horsemen, these go in order from the most dangerous to the least dangerous. So first it might start off as criticism. The criticism leads to contempt. Contempt leads to defensiveness, and defensiveness leads to stonewalling. Okay? So what I want to talk about is also what we'll talk about in the next talk. This is the first phase of a cascade of events that happen that leads towards a destructive marriage or a difficult marriage. Again, not necessarily completely failing, leading to divorce, but we're getting to a difficult point in our marriage, right? The second cascade will be a talk that we talk about later, and it will be discussing how the things that we actually think in our minds about the other person, if I'm thinking, my spouse is just so selfish, they're so difficult, I just don't want to be around them. That becomes your reality. When it becomes your reality and it's set in stone, it becomes difficult to get these people back to a level stable playing field. Not impossible, just more difficult. Okay. So what do you guys think? I want this to be an engaging talk, and I want us to be able to kind of talk with one another just a little bit if we can. And I want to hear your thoughts. So what do you think? Is it healthy to complain, or is it just as bad as criticizing? What might be the difference? To one another. So thanks for that question. Everything will be based between the couple, complaining to one another. Yes.
Are you saying, is it worse? Which one's worse?
Yep. So if there is a difference.
Okay. I think it's worse to criticize, but it's better to complain because at least you're addressing some issue versus just criticizing.
Thank you. Okay. Can you tell me the difference if you see one?
I think the difference I could come up with is
in the approach. I'm sorry.
The approach?
Yeah. So when you complain, why is it different than criticizing someone?
Like if I complain, like let's say, okay, the room's too hot, for example. It is hot, so I'm complaining because it's like affecting me. But kind of like the example you gave where like if Mira would say the room's too hot, then I could be like, well, we can't afford the AC, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that makes sense.
I know. I mean,
Because we need a new laptop.
The new laptop, right. I saw a hand on this side, but I don't know if that's okay.
Nina had his hand.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think there's a different. I mean, we can define it however we want.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Worker or like someone on my team, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So complaining is actually not a bad thing. It's healthy. It's just a matter of how we do it, right? So if I'm criticizing the person in front of me, I'm going to attack them. I'm attacking their personality. So I have an example here. I know this is a big one, and me and my husband have struggled with this ourselves. Money, how we each spend money, right? So a couple might argue, for example, that one spends more than the other, okay? If I'm complaining, or my husband's complaining, whichever one of us, right, is complaining, we might say, you know, we've talked about saving money because we need to spend more money on, we need to start paying these bills that are coming up and I have to cover my loans. That's a complaint. I didn't attack the person in front of me. The criticism. How many times have I told you to stop spending this way? Didn't I tell you we have bills to pay? You're so selfish. Do you know how much I deny myself? I don't buy myself anything. Why don't you think about anything that I say? I'm attacking. That's the difference. Do you guys see what I mean?
So I think, I know you're using these terms maybe, in a certain way, but the way that I think about it is, like, there's such a thing as, like, positive criticism versus negative criticism. So the example you're giving is like a negative criticism where you're attacking the person, you're blaming them, right? Whereas there could be such a thing as a positive criticism in the sense that you're identifying that there's a certain behavior that's the cause of the problem and you're wanting to address it. And if you feel like the cause of the problem lies with maybe some action that the other person is taking, should be a positive way to discuss it. Because I think sometimes when people just complain just as a complaint, it's kind of an unclear type of communication, because you say something as a general complaint but what you're really thinking is this is because of some action that you've done, but instead of like directly talking about it, we're just kind of like dancing around the issue, hoping that the other person is going to pick up on what I'm saying, and if they don't, then the problem never really gets resolved.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that. The next thing I was going to say, or the next point, was constructive criticism, right? It's exactly what Abuna is saying. I agree 100%. Of course, we need to tell the person what we're experiencing and what we're struggling with, right? We can't keep dancing around the issue. But the idea here is to remember not to attack the person. Of course, we do need to always say what's on our minds. Like I said, complaints are fine. Constructive criticism, I would say, is actually probably what a complaint is. But I'm going to tell you in a nice way. I'm not going to attack your personality and bring you down. Because what happens next is defensiveness, right? You start to become defensive if you're feeling attacked. Another way also to approach this is I versus you statements. Have you guys ever heard of this before in communication styles? Okay. Some have said yes, but I'll explain it anyway. So in an I statement, for example, okay, so we'll talk about the same situation with the money. So, for example, you might say, I feel like my concerns are being ignored because money is still being spent the way that I didn't want it to be. I. Did anybody hear me say, well, because you keep spending, right? That's completely taking out of the statement. That allows the other person to completely feel safe in this conversation. They're not feeling attacked. And if I say, for example, like I said, I told you not to spend money anymore. You make me feel like you just don't care about our family or our expenses. You take the you out, replace it with I statements. It automatically allows the other person to bring down their walls. And that's what you want, right? Because you want to have this conversation. It's not just me constantly complaining, right? So, in my personal experience with couples, I statements, so, right, couples come in, for example, they're angry, they're heated. They're not coming to therapy when they're feeling great. So when they come in, their walls are up, they're automatically defensive. So a big part of what I do, and I hope other therapists try this, is the I and you statements. And I know others do, but I and you statements, I versus you statements, very, very important. It disarms both immediately, even when they're so angry and so heightened. So I also want you to know, when you do complain, it's not necessarily that you're talking so calmly and everything is so delightful and we're all heated and angry, but we just have to come back down and be calm. It doesn't work like that. We're not robots. We're human. There's a lot of passion and emotion when we're angry. Again, it's okay to complain. It's just the idea of how to do it. Excuse me. Don't be aggressive. We cannot be aggressive. That's what I just cannot stress enough. As much as we can, right? Okay. The next one is contempt. What might separate contempt from criticism is the intention to insult and psychologically abuse the other person. Okay? So signs of contempt might be insults or name calling, hostile humor, mockery, negative body language like rolling your eyes, or sometimes just like pacing, for example. So a big part of contempt that I want you guys to remember, and the reason why it goes straight from the criticism or the criticism into contempt, is when we forget to admire the other person. We forget why we love that person in the first place. We're so angry. We're so upset. A big part of it is because the criticism or the complaint was ignored, right? First, if you look at the money example, it all started with a complaint. You're not spending or saving the way we decided to. Because that person or the other spouse had ignored all those chances of trying to acknowledge what the other person was saying or validating them, be like, okay, I'll work on it. I'll work on not spending that kind of money. It starts to go into the contempt. They just keep ignoring me. They're not listening. They just went and bought this new car, or, you know, they're going on shopping sprees, buying all this clothing. Why aren't they listening to me? Then the contempt starts to creep into the marriage. So it's replaced with the love that they started to feel for that person and the admiration that they might have. Does that make sense how it all leads into each other? Those two, at least for now. The next one is defensiveness. Okay? So this is the third worst. Once contemptuous conversing enters the marriage, defensiveness comes right after. Why do you think this happens? Why is it the third? Anybody have any ideas? We said that contempt means that I don't even admire or remember why I love that person in the first place. I might start to throw insults at that person, get angry, blame them for the things that they're doing. They're actually trying to hurt me on purpose.
It's like a self preservation. Like when these insults are flying, then the wall has to come up. Oh, like I was saying, it's self-preservation. Whenever the insults are coming at me, then I just have to I'm on the defense. Like I'm not trying to,
100%.
We're not on the same team anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You're defensive. And when you're defensive, who's the victim? I am. I'm constantly the victim. You did this to me, you did this to me, and you did this to me. How could you do that? If both couples feel like they're the victim, it becomes very hard to have constructive conversation about what we can do next. You're both angry, you're both upset. So now there's criticism under all of this, then contempt. Now you're both being now we're both being defensive. These are forms of defensiveness, okay? So the first one could be denying responsibility, for example. So I'll go through these and I'll give an example to each one just briefly, just so we can get a better understanding of what defensiveness might actually look like. So the first one, like I said, denying responsibility. So for instance, the house is always dirty. And the other says, well, I can't do everything around here. The second, making excuses. You're always late and late again tonight for dinner. It's not my fault. There was just so much traffic. The mind reading partner, my favorite. I do this. I'll give you an example. Knows the inner thoughts and feelings of the other. I wrote this example because I do this, literally. You're mad. I know you're mad. No, I'm not. I'm just tired. Many times my husband will come home and I'm like, are you okay? I'm just tired. Are you sure you're okay? I'm just tired. Okay. An hour or two later go by. He's still quiet. Are you sure you're okay? Yes, I'm fine. I'm just tired. He's tired. He hasn't eaten. He's a man. He's an introvert. Many reasons. But of course, those, I ignore them for some reason. And sometimes I'm just like, I just want to make sure, right? Like we're as women, we're just caring and nurturing. We just want to make sure everyone's okay. Sometimes nothing's wrong. The cross-complaining. This is when you meet your partner's complaint or criticism with an immediate, related, or unrelated complaint of your own, disregarding what your partner has said. I don't like it that your parents come over every Saturday. Well, I don't like it when you go to the gym every night. No correlation. The next one. The partner manages to defend themselves and also blame the other person at the same time. It's quite creative. How am I rude? You're the one who can't remember my parents' birthday. So I criticized at the same time as deflecting. The yes but. Suppose you think you did something you shouldn't have, but you have a moral justifiable reason that outweighs the wrong that was done. So the first spouse might say, you said you were going to fill up the gas tank, didn't you? The second says, yes, but that's because I had to get home in time to make dinner for your parents. Repeating yourself. This is a big one. Here, both partners think they're right and believe the other is absolutely wrong. It's a waste of time to understand the other's perspective. This one actually, I see all of them, but this one I see a lot with couples. You'll see them in a therapy session trying to work out a certain situation. They're just repeating each other. They're repeating themselves. You're almost I sit there and I'm like, what is the point of this? This person heard it. This person heard it. The whole idea isn't, I'm not repeating because I don't feel like the other person got it. It's because I'm so firm in what I'm thinking is right. And they do the same. They can't figure out what's wrong. And that's why these horsemen will help. Now, whining. The message is, it's not fair. It's more about how you say it and not what you say. So here I might say like, but you never take me anywhere. Why don't you listen to me? I don't do that all the time. I don't. You're deflecting, right? It's not me. I'm sorry. It wasn't me. The last one is body language. The rolling of the eyes. Sometimes you'll see people who they shift back and forth. They're pacing in the argument. Sometimes they do this. They get angry, right? It's all about my body language, okay? All of these are signs of defensiveness. Does anybody have any questions about this? I know it's a lot.
When it's such high tension or defensiveness or whatever. You know what I mean?
Kind of. Are you saying it's okay to do these things?
No, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm
Okay.
saying
Yeah, just explain.
I'm wondering what are other options, I guess.
It's coming. Yeah. Oh, it's coming.
Please things. Now what?
No, thank you. A part of this entire topic is talking also about, I'm sorry I missed this part, is to say that we're also at the end of this going to talk about the antidotes to these 4 horsemen. And based on my experiences, what also helps with couples. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, you'll see. We will see. It's good. It's good. Sure. For sure. Yes, definitely. The idea is to catch it before it gets to this point. Defensiveness is the third one. So people don't just start going straight to defensiveness, right? The first one, based on research, it's the complaining. Sorry, the criticizing. Then it's contempt. Then it's the defensiveness. And you'll see what defensiveness leads to. That's what we're trying to avoid. So if we're between in a couple, right? If you and my husband have reached, not complaining, but we go straight to criticism. Okay, I might notice I'm criticizing my husband a lot lately. Why am I doing that? I'm trying to prevent myself from going further. If I don't, the next step will be the contempt. Why am I what's going on with me? Why am I like this? Why are we like this with each other? Then the defensiveness. Say my husband has a complaint and I simply can't hear it. And my first instinct is to defend myself. I'm not looking at myself with humility and saying, I could also be wrong in this marriage, right? No, I'm definitely not wrong. Because again, defensiveness is looking at yourself as, I'm the victim. I'm the innocent one. So these, yes, they happen fast. That's the thing. They happen very fast. And sometimes even in one night, in one really, really bad argument, you might exhibit all of these. The big, big, big difference that I really want to get to, and we'll get to now, is if this is habitual. And the next slide you'll see. If these 4 things are habitual in the marriage and they continue for years on end without a break, it will be very, very not impossible, very difficult to come out. So that's kind of what I'm getting to. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else have any questions so far? And we'll get to, again, like I said, the antidotes to all of this. So the next one is stonewalling. This is the last one. This is the most dangerous. Okay? So one partner presents as if they're listening, but simply hoping the other just finishes. Okay? They just want to leave their presence. So they might just sit there and, yep, Person's complaining, and just want to leave. They don't deal with the tension. Who do you think exhibits stonewalling more, the man or the woman? Yay. Yes, you got it. 85% of men will actually exhibit stonewalling more than women. Do you know why? What? Okay. They do. Okay. It overwhelms them. Yeah, good. And there's also a physiological response to that. What happens when the man starts to get tense and irritated? Physiologically. What do you think might happen? Adrenaline, fast heart rate, high blood pressure. You know what's funny? Is that the man will I pointed at my husband. It's because he's a man, not because of anything else. Sorry. Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, but what's... Yeah. I'm getting there. But what the funny thing is, they hate the tension, right? They don't want it to escalate it. So they actually, in their minds, think when they walk away, they're de-escalating the situation. What happens to a woman when the man stonewalls? Immediately. What? Say it. Don't be shy. Oh, you're going to walk away. Okay, I'm coming after you. My best advice in marriage was, this is really funny that you brought this up, because I wanted to say, when the man walks away, you don't run after him. Well, this man just stonewalled me. I'm talking about a complaint or a criticism, something I am feeling that he did. I'm trying to relate to this person. And he's, you have anything to say? Like maybe... Yes.
Sometimes it's a venting session for the wife, or just want to complain, want to speak out, and it's can get confusing between, is she just venting, getting things out,
my gosh,
or
Freddy, you're like,
it really is.
No, it's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
or
have you ever? I actually thought of putting this video up, but I didn't. Now I regret it. Have you guys ever seen the video of the woman who has a nail in her forehead, and the man is literally just sitting there, and she's like, I just have these headaches, and I don't know why. She's just venting and venting and venting, and he's sitting on the couch, and he's like, do you think maybe it's the nail? Can you not? No, it's not the nail. I just want to talk to you. And he's just sitting there looking at the nail, and she's complaining about the pain it's causing, these headaches that are coming along. And all she wants is to be heard, right? And sometimes I think it's fair, in the spirit of communication, I think it's fair that if a man is approached with the situation and he's like, does she want me to sit quiet? Or does she want advice? Sometimes actually Mina will ask me, he'll say, is this a venting moment? Or is this an advice? Of course, I taught him. Just kidding. And he'll ask. Because if he doesn't ask, how does he know? So it's fair, right? We can't expect a completely different, men are very different than women. Have you guys ever read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? We're very different. And I recommend that book to people who are also getting married. It's a very good book. So, yes, I think it's fair that you brought that up, and I think it's fair for women to say that. Bunas, you were going to say something?
Because I have a problem at work or something,
Yeah.
versus the woman is venting because she's criticizing the man.
Right.
So if the man feels that he doesn't have any way to win, because the man wants to win. So if no, I mean generally, right? Like even in the book, The Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, it talks about how like a big motivation of what motivates a man is the idea of like accomplishing something or winning something.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if the man feels like no matter what he does, he's in a situation where he cannot win, even if in his mind he feels like what the woman is saying is irrational, but there's no way to reason. And so he stonewalls because he has no other option, and he wants to avoid escalation, like you said, and avoid, saying something that's going to make it worse, because it's directed toward him. So I think that's examples a little different if it's just against him versus just talking in general about complaining about general things.
Yes, thank you, Bruno, for making that distinction. Definitely.
I think there's a difference, though, in the spirit of, like, stonewalling. Stonewalling is like, I'm disconnected and I want nothing to do with this conversation and your complaints and your feelings because it's too much. You're too much for me. It's too much for me. This relationship's too much for me. It's like a disconnect versus, like, I'm scared to offend you more and to hurt your feelings. There's more bitterness and like rejection and dejection, I feel like, with stonewalling than just a good intentioned man afraid to make the next wrong move, It's different. It's like an isolated feeling, a detached feeling with stonewalling, I feel like. Would you agree, Monica?
I 100% agree. Okay. Yes, I would agree. And going into that, yes. So what Abuna is saying is also like they're both are correct, right? And actually what Freddy said is correct. There are three different points. The stonewalling here is the one that is more a little bit about what Sarah is talking about. Is if what Abuna is saying is the man just can't get out, doesn't know what else to do. I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to take the bullet for this argument. That's fine. That's commendable. That's respectful. That's respected, right? I don't want to escalate this situation. So you know what? She's frustrated. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna wait till the next time. But like Sarah's saying, if the stonewalling is aggressive, detachment, I don't want to talk to this person, that's bad. Allergies, sorry. Number one husband right here. No. Only husband. Okay. One thing I wanted to pinpoint for all of us and to be cautious of, because I think this will help us a lot. What amplifies the 4 horsemen in marriage? Childhood experiences. Increases the severity of the 4 horsemen when not attended to. I'm not going to sit here and say 100% trauma. I'm not going to say sexual abuse, intense physical abuse. I'm going to keep it at negative childhood experiences, like, for example, verbal abuse, neglect, and physical abuse, but not to the point of like extreme cases where you're going to the hospital, right? But if you've been around that when you were younger as a child, it will affect the 4 horsemen. And you might actually end up having a lower tolerance. And what I mean by that is the defensiveness gets triggered much faster than it would for somebody who had no bad experiences. Not that none of us had bad experiences growing up. Some are worse than others, no? So, for instance, sorry guys. Can you open this? I'm just okay, so can you give me an example? A childhood experience with parents that make a child, for example, or make you as an adult defensive. Can you think of anything?
Being compared to a sibling or a friend constantly as being below them or not as good.
Yeah, that's great. Constantly trying to advocate for yourself in that situation. Lower self-esteem in that case, right? If you have this is a great example, thank you. If you have low self-esteem, for instance, right? And then your spouse goes to complain, not criticize, say that they're using the I statements instead of the you statements. Your threshold for anger will be lower. For defensiveness, it will be low. So you'll automatically feel triggered. Why? Because it's something that happened in your childhood. So you'll start to feel like you need to be defensive. No. Well, no, I didn't do that. I didn't mean it. Or I didn't do that. What are you talking about? There's a reason why childhood experiences, and you could say even trauma if you'd like, are dealt with before couples therapy. So in my experience, for example, if a couple comes in, which happens a lot, they're coming in with all this heat, they're angry, they're going at each other. And then all of a sudden, you see that one person is highly defensive, will not take anything, will not even, and you're kind of just like, okay, so what was the point of, I thought you're coming in to heal. What's going on? What's really going on? So I start to ask questions about their past, and you start to realize there's some severe trauma that's leading the person in their marriage to be defensive or argumentative or angry or contemptuous. Sometimes people's first response is contempt. It's not even defensiveness. When I see that in a therapy session, at least, I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. What's going on for you? Forget the couples. And then you start to realize maybe this person actually might need individual therapy first in order to work on the couples therapy. So my recommendation at that point would be to seek individual therapy if you feel like things from your past are coming up, if they're affecting the marriage. Does that make sense? Yes, does someone have?
I want to say also belittling an accomplishment that the kid can do Like if he gets 9 out of 10 in an exam and say, oh, I didn't get 10 out of 10.
Happens all
you
the
know.
time.
And the other way, actually, the other extreme, if the kid get 1 out of 10 and they make him feel nothing, like as he didn't, he should have done his job, but no, they didn't make him feel guilty.
Yeah.
So the two extremes.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody else have anything? One thing also is the assumptions that come up. So sometimes a spouse may mimic a behavior of a parent that they used to have, right? So like maybe like you'll go visit your in-laws, or your in-laws will come over, you're starting to get to know them, and you're like, holy moly, that's exactly what you do, my friend. You're talking about your spouse, and you're noticing it in the other person. That assumption is dangerous. The reason why that assumption is dangerous is because you're automatically assuming no change can happen. Because what you're seeing is, I'm seeing in front of me exactly what this person or my spouse is about to become. And they're going to be like that forever. And it leads people to that. When that assumption happens, it leads people to give up a lot faster. And this happens quite often, unfortunately. So assumptions aside, let's try not to do that. It's hard, of course, but we try. Did you want to say something? All right. Now there's hope in all of this. The antidotes. Okay. So we talked a little bit about this. When nothing seems to work, we might think of more elaborate, complex hypotheses as to why our marriage isn't working. And that might be the comparison like I was talking about to their parent, for example. So what are repair mechanisms? Okay. It's the distinct, so one of the antidotes are repair mechanisms, which are distinct differences between healthy and unhealthy marital arguments is the use of these mechanisms. They counteract defensiveness and they de-escalate tension. They work to check or regulate the marriage. So what is a repair mechanism? The general rule is it often entails commenting on what's happening in your interaction while it's taking place, or reminding your partner that you admire them and empathize with them or with him or her despite the conflict. For example, you're in an argument, a heated discussion, okay? And I want you to keep in mind that these repair mechanisms, they don't necessarily need to be said with a lot of like, oh, no. It doesn't work. It's not realistic. If a couple's going at each other, they're angry, you're keeping all the other things in mind, right? Like preventing the 4 horsemen and the I statements, for example. But still, it's a heated conversation. You're upset. It might be like, can you just stop interrupting me, please? You're interrupting a lot. I can't land my plane. You guys ever heard that? Let me just get to the end. That's positive. That's okay. You don't need to say as, you're interrupting me. Who's going to do that in a heated moment, right? Now, another one actually that might seem negative is to say, we're going off topic. Bring it back. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a very good thing. The reason why is you're sticking to the topic. Sometimes you might see where, like, even in an argument, as I've watched couples do it, they might say, well, then your mother did this. And then, it happened with our kids. And now I'm worried that this. And now I almost forgot what the problem was originally. Let's slow down. Can you repeat what the problem was? He just doesn't listen to me. Where did all this come from? That's another issue in and of itself, and it also tells that there's a lot of resentments that have built up. But coming back to this, when they say, if someone says, or a couple says to you, or your spouse says to you, please stop interrupting, it's not a bad thing. Take a step back and be like, okay, fine. I'll try. Go ahead. It's still going to be tough, and that's okay. It's okay to be annoyed. But then the validating couple, sometimes there isn't this huge tension, right? Sometimes they can validate each other. So it might look like, okay, I got it. Okay, so it's frustrating. I got it. Okay, I'm going to try better. I'm going to do better. In the whole idea is that in a heated conversation or anything that you're trying to communicate to each other, you are pausing it. You're slowing down. You're interrupting me. Please stop. Or I might validate the person, making them feel less tense, de-escalate the situation. That's the whole idea. De-escalate the other person, bring their walls down. Does that make sense? That's what these mechanisms are. Okay, guys, so let's discuss this real quick. I know we don't have much time. So for the first one, criticism. Who wants to say what they got for the antidotes? Who wants to just read it off? Any volunteers? Just reading off the antidote? Yep, for criticism.
Say it again.
Okay, so I'll read the criticism and you can read the antidote for criticism. So criticism here, it says dealing with problems through harsh, blaming or hurtful expressions of judgment or disapproval, focuses on perceived personal flaws rather than the changeable behavior, often met with defensiveness. And for example, it might sound like, this kitchen is a mess, you're such a slob. It's attacking the character of the person, the personality. I'm so sorry. I'll buy you a gift card. I got you, Abuna. I got you. That was my mistake.
That sounded very volatile.
Can you make sure that all of the rest were right?
So
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Badin.
Yes.
Okay, so the antidote is gentle startup, dealing with problems in a calm and gentle way. The focus is on the problem, not the person. So save the discussions for an appropriate time. Use warm body language and tone of voice. Use the I statements. I feel frustrated when dirty dishes are left in the sink. Could you please do the dishes tonight? Come on.
Okay, the next one is defensiveness. Deflecting responsibility for your own mistakes and behaviors, or refusing to accept feedback, making excuses for behavior, shifting blame to your partner. It isn't my fault, I yelled. You were late, not me. Now the antidote to defensiveness. It's taking responsibility. Who can read it for us? Anyone at all.
Okay, take responsibility. Own up to your behavior without blaming others. Avoid taking feedback personally. Use feedback as an opportunity to improve. Show remorse and apologize. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I'm sorry.
All right, contempt. Showing anger, disgust, or hostility toward your partner, using the put downs or insults, acting superior to your partner, using a mocking or sarcastic tone. The antidote. Share fondness and admiration.
Foster healthy relationships by regularly showing each other respect and appreciation, show affection, recognize your partner's strengths, and give compliments.
Thank you. And the last one, stonewalling. Emotionally withdrawing, shutting down, or going silent during important discussions. Often a response to feeling overwhelmed, used to avoid difficult discussions or problems. Underlying problems go unresolved. And the antidote? Use self-soothing. Can someone read that?
Use relaxation techniques to calm down and stay present with your partner. Agree to pause the conversation briefly. Use deep breathing. Use progressive muscle relaxation.
Anybody have any comments on any of these?
And I'll send this out in an email to everybody so you don't have to worry about saving the sheets.
Thank you, Mira. Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot. I just get excited about therapy. It's just like a guided meditative exercise where you like are quiet and then you just like focus on different muscle groups progressively down your body. So you like tense up your toes and then you relax them, and you tense up your calves and relax them, and you go like all the way up, and then you tense up your whole body and relax it, and it's soothing.
Reduces anxiety.
No, this is the antidote. It's the antidote to stonewalling.
Anybody else?
Right? So if there's like some disconnection, you want to soothe your body by doing these things.
I want to thank Monica for summarizing a very difficult topic in a very smooth way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Picture with me the first human fight. Picture with me the garden and Adam and Eve after the fall. We hear the conversation that happened between them and God. There probably was a conversation between the two of them. I bet you there was every one of these. There was criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and I can picture Adam telling her, just leave me alone. Stonewalling. The point is, our natural behavior as a fallen nature is to quickly gravitate to these. Unfortunately, we expect so much of ourselves. We expect that we are going to naturally respond right. The truth is, we don't respond right. Our natural quick response, usually in a conversation or a challenge, is criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. So we have to learn a second nature. The second nature doesn't come natural. It comes with practice. And sometimes it's odd or difficult for us to swallow, well, my wife and I am going to practice taking responsibility. Yes, you will, because it doesn't come naturally for you to take responsibility. The natural thing for you is to be defensive, is to stonewall. So it is unnatural to do the right thing. We need to practice it.
Thank you, Dr. Emad. That was well said. Thank you.
Monica, I had a question about the first one. It said to the gentle startup, it said use I statement, but it also said, like, I don't know, to take time, like save the discussion for appropriate time. And I heard that before. Like you shouldn't have serious conversations early in the morning or late at night.
Uh-huh.
But how do you do that, like in real life? You know, kids sleep, that's when you could actually talk, but it's also already late at night. And also, you know, like it feels like then in the morning, when do you talk about, you know what I mean? Like, what's the practical way, one, of deciding that, and two, of applying something like that? Like, is it just a couple hours a day that you dedicate, just this is when we talk about these things, or what?
So I wouldn't go as far as to say like every day a couple of hours, like, because that is hard. We are all busy. We all have, you know, busy lives. One thing that is recommended is picking one day of the week. On a Friday, say everything that has happened. We're not going to talk about anything. Okay, we're going to sit. We're going to think about it, right? Because when you talk about when you talk about something that comes up automatically, or like comes up, and you're caught off guard, you know, sometimes we're just not in the best state of mind. We're either we could be angry, we could be tired, we could be hungry. A big part is hunger. A big part of arguments is hunger. Believe it or not. So what I recommend to my clients, at least, is picking a day of the week, because it also gets the other person or the spouse to be like, okay, I know this is coming. I am upset, and I'm going to bring up all these things, and I'm going to prepare myself emotionally, especially us women, prepare emotionally for what's to come. And for men, men are more organized, more methodical, right? So they're going to take the time to think about what it is that they specifically want to talk about, what really frustrated me in that moment. It gives us time also to calm down a little bit, right? When we're heated all the time, the tension, there's so much tension, and we're more likely to make more mistakes and to speak out of anger. So that's my recommendation. And then the other one, you said the application. Could you explain that one again? Because I couldn't hear you when you started talking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I think like sometimes, I don't know, like it could be something that just happens and you want to address it right away, but it might be late. But you also don't want to start an argument, but you also don't necessarily, like maybe as the person who's more calm, like in that specific argument, you want to say, okay, can we save it for a different day? But you also don't want to say it in a way like it's not important.
Sure.
So
I mean, so say it's at night, you put the kids to bed and you're exhausted, but there's something that's just weighing on you, you're upset. In the spirit of open communication, you might tell your spouse, hey, there's something that really bothered me and I want to talk about it. Do you want to talk right now? Are you okay to talk about this? Because it's really bothering me. If they say no, I am tired. Okay. When will you be able to talk about it? They can't just run away from the problem. If there is running away, then there's a problem. If, say, that night they're just upset that, you know what, I've had a rough day, I don't want to talk about anything. Let it go. The next day, hey, how are you feeling? They might say, I'm feeling better now. Why, what's up? I did want to talk about this. There's something that's bothering me. Can we talk about it now? It's being open and respecting the other person's emotions and feelings at the same time. But if they keep pushing it off, then it's having a different conversation. Hey, I've been asking to talk about this, and it's really bothering me. It's weighing on me. Are we going to talk about this? When are we going to talk about this? That's my recommendation, my personal opinion, but people here have been married for a long time. If anybody has any advice, please feel free. Dr. Ahmed's in the room. We have other therapists. We have Sarah, as a therapist, Mira. What do you guys think? I agree. Definitely.
You should resolve it as soon as you can so it doesn't fester and build into more contempt. But also, like, this second you're having the big emotion, that's not the time to talk about it. Like, you need to do the self-soothing, calm down, pray, relax, think about what the problem is. Because sometimes it's like emotional and you're just like saying all these bad things in your head, which we'll talk about next time and stuff. But you just need to take a break and get back to level and then have a real conversation about it as soon as you can, but when everyone's healthy. So I like that. You're like, is this a good time for you now? If not, when? And then schedule it. One couple, at the church that we work at, there's this couple that runs a premarital retreat, a workshop once every other month. And the one thing that they say is like basically to schedule like a business meeting, basically like once a week where you sit down and you hash out, how have I offended you this week? And what could I have done better this week? Which is exactly basically what you said. And that way, like, you know that there's going to be a time where we can address this. It doesn't have to be right now whenever I'm very angry and you're very angry and I'm tired and you're hungry and all this stuff, but I'll keep a note of it and then we'll have a level-headed, peaceful conversation later on. But that requires self-soothing to be able to calm yourself down, instead of like needing your partner to tell you you're right or they understand. You have to take care of yourself, and then you can meet up and hash it out between the two of you.
Perfectly said. Thank you. Completely agree. So just because we only have like a couple minutes left, I'm going to leave you guys with this because I think it's important. I know you can't see it. Yeah, you can't see it, which is fine. I'm just going to talk to you guys. So based on my experience, what I've seen, even in my own marriage, a big part of why marriages don't do so well is pride. A lot of people may have the right, may justify their pride because they're angry, they're upset. Fights get ugly. People might push their other spouse. If it's not physical, they just shove, or the swearing, the pain. It's hard. It's hard to get over your anger. But as the Bible says, that's also pride. If we can't work on it, and I have seen this happen, it does lead to really difficult marriages. There's so much pain that neither one of them, with the defensiveness, they're the victim. I'm the victim. Nobody can say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. It's hard for people to say, I'm sorry. That's a really, really big part. Even if sometimes you feel like you're not, but you know it'll de-escalate the person, help validate them, and bring them back down. What's wrong with just saying, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Clearly, I upset you. Tell me what it is, I'm sorry. It's just connecting with that other person. It's seeing that person as a loving person, the person that you first loved and married, right? One thing I'll say also is that, so I work at 2 places. I work at a private practice, and then I work for the church, as Sarah had mentioned. And at the church, you can do therapy in the sense of like Christian therapy, where you can literally read the Bible in session with a couple. It's pretty amazing. Private practice, you cannot bring up God unless they bring it up. That's fine. But this is what I've seen. The more successful marriages are the marriages that have a God-centered marriage. Those that do not struggle dearly. It's not that couples therapy won't help these people who don't have God, right? Like we said with the 4 horsemen, they can catch it, okay? We can catch it, we can prevent it, that's fine. What happens is they can, what I've seen is that they will end up in this cycle. This vicious cycle of the 4 horsemen, then going back to having a great marriage, then going back to the first horseman, then the third, then the fourth. It's a constant battle. But I have noticed the calmness in a marriage where there is God lasts longer. So you're not exhibiting the 4 horsemen consistently all the time. The periods of peace and calm are longer than with those who don't have God. There's more contempt here with those who don't have God. They start to easily hate their spouse, and this is where I think divorce is really prevalent. Does anybody have any comments or questions about that piece? Okay. Not up, right? Okay. Well, watch this last video. It's only 3 minutes long. I think these are the experts, 25 plus to like 35 years of marriage. So let's just see what they have to say.
Drinking coffee every day didn't work for me, but I couldn't figure out why until I went from 184 to 123. I was doing everything right. I just needed a little tweak to one thing. So this is the simple method that has helped me drop close to 61 pounds since September. I kept it to myself for a while.
We've been married for 51 years.
54 years.
We're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this year. Friday the 13th turned out to be the luckiest day of my life.
I think what I love the most about Bruce is he's very kind.
She's a good cook. Serene.
She's a very compassionate person.
She is truly the person I always wanted to be.
I love it. She is the epitome of serenity.
Oh, one surprise to me about marriage after all these years has been what a joy it is at this stage.
I didn't know that it would be that wonderful again as it was, before we had all these little screaming Mimis.
Well, it's not easy.
Well, and the biggest
And if anybody thinks that you're going to be on your honeymoon for 51 years, it's ridiculous.
Sometimes the tunnel's pretty long.
Yeah, and dark.
Well, it has been an enjoyable challenge because I've been introduced into a culture that I was just totally ignorant of.
It was very hard for her, I know that. What hurt so much?
You. I think I had to have been like in my 30s or early 40s. I just thought, this is it? This isn't fun.
It didn't matter to me that Jim wasn't a member of the church because I loved him very much. And I thought if I only lived with him for this time only, then that was what I would be happy with. But a couple of years later, when our children started to come along, I realized that was not true, that I wanted to be with my children and him forever.
Really, the only reason it worked in those early years is we both loved the Lord.
and we taught our children to love the Lord.
The secret to anything, I think, holding to the rod. If you hold to the rod and don't give up when things are hard, there's always a way through. President Hinckley always said it, that this will pass and that things will get better. And things always do get better.
So you have to be patient and loving and see where it goes.
Yeah.
You're going to have ups and downs, but it's worth it.
You cannot change someone to fit the mold you want them to be.
I just respect his space and he respects my space. Love him where he is.
Be sure to buy 2 tubes of toothpaste.
Well, I will say you are the love of my life. And I'm so grateful that we have stuck it out this long, and I see us together another gazillion or Google. Do you say Google now?
She's my babe.
And I love you, and I love the fact that I'm going to have you by my side forever.
I love him so much. Love being with him.
How could you not kiss?
Yeah.
How do you not kiss? I love it. Okay. So just before we end, where's my presentation? I'll leave you with one hopeful verse. In just a second. No, can you not? Okay. It says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. So in my opinion, okay, I guess you can see it. Okay. In my opinion, sometimes couples will come and they're like, love just wasn't enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. That's why we're here. In my opinion, based on what we know, and especially that verse, love really is encompassing all things. We're not supposed to be selfish. We're not supposed to be prideful. All the things that it says, we're supposed to persevere. I'll leave you with one story. Hopefully it's hopeful, and then we'll end. I had a couple where the woman came in first and she said to me, I have a great marriage. I was like, oh, that's nice. Tell me. And she said to me, but was it always that way? I was like, okay. She said they were married for about 20 years and it was amazing. She said she had the best marriage, the best kids, always in the church. It was just nothing could go wrong. The kids left the house. The husband had a nervous breakdown, a nervous meltdown. He went off and for the next 5 years slept with 5 different women. And so she obviously didn't know what to do with it. She was like, he literally would, he was gone for 5 years, didn't know anything about him, nothing. And then he came onto my doorstep asking for forgiveness. And I was like, what'd you do? And she said, I forgave him. I was like, for 5 years, 5 different women, you forgave him? She said, it wasn't easy. I prayed every single day, but I waited. I thought God's going to hear me. And he did. And he came back. And now it's been about 7 years after what happened. He's still killing himself for it, she says. He's very sad about it. But she's like, we have the best marriage. She's like, guess what we're reading right now? I said, what? She said, the Love and Respect book. I was like, wow. You guys came a long way. I was like, that's amazing. She didn't do anything is the point. It was God. He changed his heart. He came back to his family. The whole point of this is, there's this 4 horsemen, and we're teaching you how to prevent them, catch them, so that the marriage doesn't spiral out of control. Regardless of all this that we're teaching, Don't forget God's presence. God is incredible and can work miracles and can do anything. When you're feeling down, bend your knees, pray. I've seen crazy things happen. I mean, that's just one example. Many couples, their suffering ends simply because they've prayed. Things that have happened, you simply can't explain it. They're just miracles. God is always present in our marriages. He loves us, and he's teaching us to love. Love ourselves and love our spouses the same way. That's it. The end.